Welcome back to The Chosen Life. I'm your host, The Chosen Lawyer, and back for yet another episode. The man who's already been parading up and down Yonge Street in Toronto, Ontario, Canada for the past couple of days. He is the money man. He is the world's number one Leaf fan, Mr. Zachary Rain of Rain Finance. Zach, welcome back to The Chosen Life.
Thank you. Yep, I'm very excited. I'm going to sound exactly like the hockey players right now and say, "Well, the job's not done. The job's not done." But first step of the way, so that's pretty awesome.
Tell me, is it a gift or a burden to be right as often as you are? It's not an easy thing, is it? When you have to come back to people and say, "I told you so."
Yeah, I try to avoid doing that because I think there's humility in being wrong and right and everything like that. So that's okay.
Well, today's episode is a tribute to you, Zachary Rain. I wore your blue and white shirt even for this occasion.
Yeah, thank you.
Today is all about basking in Toronto Maple Leafs glory. So, Zach, I don't know if you heard or not, but the Maple Leafs have had over the past few years a little bit of trouble getting past the first round of the NHL playoffs. Lo and behold, it actually happened. When you saw that moment, were you shocked or did it just feel right? Did you feel it was coming?
Felt it was coming. I thought it was going to happen last year too. I think that, and I'm going to sound like the characteristic Leaf fan here and say that the refs, I think the refs were too involved last year, which was made evidently clear this year with the whole Wes McCauley Sheldon Keefe um, conflict, let's just say, and once we were able to get past that game one and everything else kind of settled down, I think it was just a matter of time because the Leafs, they're just too good. They're a good team. They've always deserved, especially over the last 3 years, to be in the second round. And I think I think that they're not done either. I think that they're going to get past Florida too, with, I don't want to say ease, but with relatively swiftly.
Well, I'm going to tell you that if FanDuel hadn't screwed up my bet, I would be $50 richer right now because I did predict they were going to win game six. I had no surprise in that whatsoever. I had that, I had that feeling. But let's put aside basking in our glory in that. To start off today's episode, Zachary Rain, we have to start off with the most important topic is what did the Leafs have to do to beat the Florida Panthers? So, the hockey gods smiled down on you, Zachary, and they said, you know what? This Boston thing is so passe. Let's get rid of Boston out of the picture for now. Let's bring in the Florida Panthers. And at the time of this taping, we're heading into game two. Don't know if you heard or not, but game one did not go so well for the Maple Leafs, as game one seemed to never do. But what did the Leafs have to do to beat the Panthers? And are they going to beat the Panthers?
What do they have to do? Is a good question. I think it's more Sheldon Keefe than it is the Leafs. I think there's a couple of Leafs specifically that need to do stuff, but I think it's more on Keefe. Um, Paul Maurice is a very good hockey coach. He's always been a very good hockey coach. And you could see just in game one that the reason they lost is because Sheldon Keefe got out coached. And that was very clear. We're talking about a team that runs a very clear 2-1-2, hard on the forechecks. You got the strong side D men in the neutral zone or even in the offensive zone that's always going to pinch down. So they're predictable, which for a hockey team is good because as your own player and your own teammate, you kind of know where they're going to be and what the play is going to be. But on the same token, on the opposition, you know what they're doing. You know, it's like for if they're running a 2-1-2, two forwards coming down to pressure on either side, one centerman in the middle, or one center down the middle of the ice. All you have to do is play the puck up the middle of the ice with a one touch, and you're getting past them. So it's it's on Keefe to realize these things. On the same token, I know we're getting into it a little later, so I'm not going to get too far into it. But there's a couple players in the Leafs that have to figure it out per se, because they're not doing their job. They're not getting what they're paid for. So there's that. But I think mainly it'll come to coaching with Keefe. And on top of that, I think the Leafs can't get drawn into the physicality of the Panthers. You saw McCabe in yesterday's game. I think he has a personal vendetta against Kachuk or something like that because he was in that guy's kitchen the whole freaking night. But it caused him a problem because he made a big hit, then he was aggressive and up into play, and he got caught, right? So I've generally liked McCabe's thus far. So you can't get caught playing their game. You have to play Leafs game. And with the way the Leafs are built now, absorb the hits, take them, throw a few, but you don't need to be the one instigating, especially against Florida because you'll lose. They're huge.
So if you're a betting man right now, how many games is it going to take for the Leafs to win this one?
6.
It's going to go into 6. Okay. So let's fast forward for a second here. Why are the Panthers here? I mean, we all were certain that it was going to be Boston. We'll talk about Boston in a moment. Why is Florida here? What did they do to get here? How did they beat the odds for this, Zach?
We could we could blame the curse. I don't know how that far would get us. Anyways,
The President's Trophy curse?
yeah, exactly. I don't know if I can believe in that Hui. I think the reality is that Paul Maurice, and I'm going to keep reiterating this because he is as good of a coach as everyone thinks he is. He's a very good hockey coach. I think that momentum is an absolute force. And all it takes is like this one flicker of doubt in someone's head that'll grow and grow and grow exponentially as the Panthers start to believe in their momentum and their confidence grows and grows and grows. It's a slippery slope. It's a snowball effect. I never thought the Panthers were a bad team. I think especially for Boston, they're a great adversary. I don't know if many other teams could have beaten Boston. I just think that with the way matchups go, which is the telltale sign of NHL, you have a team like Florida who has a chance beating Boston. Like I have a bracket. I have 2 brackets, and one of them I had Florida over Boston. Because there was definitely a good chance. I don't think Florida beats many other teams in the first round, and I think Boston would beat the majority of other playoff teams in the first round. But it's just about the way that they're composed, the physicality, the defensiveness, and the boringness of the Florida team. And I say boring, excluding their first line, because the rest of the game is boring. They play a very simple game. Like I said, they have systems, they run it, they do it like clockwork, and otherwise they just rely on their top line to run and gun, put as many pucks in the net as you can.
Well, what have I missed here? Because from what I recall, Mr. Bobrovsky was left for dead at the side of the road. And lo and behold, I'm not going to tell you he carried them there, but he certainly looked good in game 1 of round 2. If correct me if I'm wrong, did this man not win a couple of Vezinas in his career?
Yeah, no, he was always something to worry about. The guy, he got signed for 10.5 million for a reason. It wasn't just because it was a fluke. He had enough good years in a row to get that. He's a gamer. It's just like the rest of the big time goalies in the NHL. Everybody has bad seasons. Everybody, has bad years, some of them, right? But when the time comes and the pressure's on, if you're that type of gamer, you'll turn on.
If Florida calls you right now and says, we got an exemption made and we can make an in playoff trade and we will give you Bobrovsky for Samsonov, do you make that deal?
No.
Okay.
No. I like the way Sammy's been playing, and I'll attribute it to something that we'll probably discuss about Ryan O'Reilly later on. I think Sammy's a room guy.
He will wake up in the morning and the sun will come up again. I love that
Exactly.
quote. That was amazing.
Right?
The guy knows how to talk.
His whole world could be falling apart. He's going to sit there and be like, "Oh, it's a good day today."
I'm alive. The sun
Yeah,
is up.
exactly.
So now let's look at a couple of teams that are now making their golfing and vacation plans. First of all, the Lightning and Mr. Andrei Vasilevskiy.
Yes.
Hall of Fame, future goaltender, solid as they come. And the Leafs just peppered him with shots. First NHL team ever to win 3 overtime playoff games on the road against the best goaltender. What the heck happened to the Lightning? Like when they're reassessing their future and what the heck happened? Did they just run into a better team? Where did they falter, Zach? What went wrong for these Lightnings?
For the first time, I think in a very long time for John Cooper, he was outcoached. And I'm not going to say it was Sheldon Keefe because I think that he outcoached Sheldon Keefe. I think whoever does the scouting report for the Leafs on Vasilevskiy was able to beat their opposing counterpart. I still think John Cooper is head over heels a better coach than Sheldon Keefe, but the majority of the Leaf goals were scored by point shots that were redeflected in front or had screens. That's why everybody's looking Morgan Riley. Morgan Riley looks like freaking Cale Makar right now, right? And it's because of plays like that, simple floaters that with a screen can't see it. So, as a goalie, if you take away their eyes, intuition can only get you so far. Sheer size and angling can only get you so far. You can't see the puck. And if it's a redirection in front, which who knows how a puck is going to get redirected, especially if it's close enough, then again, you can't see it. You can't know it. You have no chance. And redirecting a puck is such a skill. Everybody talks, they walk around and they look at like McDavid dangling in a phone booth and think, oh my God, this guy's the most skilled player in the world. I'm telling you right now, it is way easier to do a toe drag through your legs, backhand spinorama, than it is to deflect shots that are coming in at you 95 miles an hour in front of a net, and not just deflect them. You're not just trying to make contact. You're trying to direct your contact into a certain position. Like that is hard. So I think that's the majority of where Vasilevskiy got beat.
I gotta say, from a Leafs perspective, if I had to say what I thought their best played game was, it was Game 6. I thought they kept it well, lower scoring game. I just thought they had nice momentum instead of these, falling, 1,000 goals behind and then catching up, pulling the goalie, and trying to score that way. Like you're playing with fire constantly, and you're gonna get burnt. And I said to myself, like, they cannot let this go to a Game 7. They must finish this right now and find a way, and they did. But I can't say, that they looked like, such a beautifully, crisp team. I mean, you look at Samsonov's numbers, but then look across the board in the NHL at all the teams. Scoring is up in the playoffs right now.
Phew.
And that's fine. I feel a lot better right now than in Vegas or in Edmonton and what they got for goaltending and what they have to deal with. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it was a nice matchup for the Leafs in that sense. And I'm not disappointed that they're not having to face Boston right now. And Boston now has to come back and reassess things. So I think they would have rather faced the Leafs. But first of all, the guy that we were praising all season, Linus Ullmark, what happened? Did it turn midnight and turn into a pumpkin? I'm confused there. And so I'm going to ask you first and foremost, did they wait too long to rotate their goaltenders? Would you have brought in Swanson earlier?
No. Swayman deserves to stay on the bench. It's all
Swayman, sorry. Call him Swanson, but Swayman. And okay. he kind of like as a Swanson, from the TV dinner. But I was a little surprised, but not really, that they had to do the switch over for Game 7. It clearly wasn't working, and you had to do a switch over. And I think he kept them well into the game, and the better team just simply won. But Boston, having dominated for so much of the season without really showing any cracks, did you see this coming really in any capacity with them? And do they need now an overhaul? What is your thoughts, Zach?
I saw it coming. The problem with Boston is they're just, to me, they're a couple of years ahead of Pittsburgh, right? They're the same generation, and they haven't updated their talent in the same respect, for instance, like LA did, right? Like Boston still of that generation where they had their superstar young players come in and, the Tim Thomas era where they were winning Stanley Cups then, right? The majority of the team and the core talent is the same. And eventually, core talent gets older. It's just the same thing that happened with Pittsburgh. It's a bloody shame because it's some of the best players we want to watch, but they can only play so much. Bergeron is hurt all the time. Krejci, another one, he's hurt all the time. And when you lose your 1-2 punch as centerman, it's hard. You can't just come back from that. No matter how deep you have. They paid a boatload for Orlov, who's a defensive liability, and Bertuzzi, who was more interested in taking artifacts for him to keep on the road than he is in actually putting pucks on the net. Boston was a great team in the regular season. Another team I still think well coached. I was always worried about the playoffs with Ullmark because I'm pretty sure I said in a previous episode, until you've got playoff track record, you can't say that you're the best goalie in the league. And I find them personally, I find them slow. I don't see they move the puck fast, but individual players are slow. And eventually it catches up with you because if you're slow and you're getting hit, especially against like a team like, Florida, which will run you into the ground and you're already slow, you're moving the puck slower now because you just got smushed by Matthew Tkachuk or Radko Gudas, then there's only so much you can do. So I think it was Boston's time. I think it's time that they probably start making wholesale changes and they have to adapt like LA did, same Doughty era. A lot of those players retired and they ended up drafting new superstars or acquiring new good hockey players. So it's just a matter of time for Boston and they'll figure it out. It's Boston.
If you could switch out right now, Samsonov for Ullmark, would you do that?
No, 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 no. Samsonov is playing well and Samsonov has compete. I don't find that Ullmark has compete. The guy, the guy, you know, I think maybe because Samsonov is just always so happy, it's like a goldfish. He's got a short memory. Sun will come up tomorrow. So if he feels that way after every goal, then he knows that, okay, well, as they say, doo-doo happens. Figure it out and let's move forward.
Zach, if I was getting a long-term deal and making 3 to 5 million a year US, I would be pretty happy too. Just saying.
Yeah, I would be too, but whatever.
Now you have to have a backup, right?
Yep.
And his backup is the Wall, Joseph Wall, right?
Yeah, man,
And
oh man, good for him.
he earned it obviously by his play. And sitting there as goaltender number 3 on the depth chart is our good friend Mr. Matt Murray.
Yep.
Which, God forbid something happens to Mr. Samsonov and you have to go the combo of Wall Murray. And if Murray's healthy, at least you got 3 capable goalies, versus in past years. But is there a part of you that's kind of thinking if Murray's healthy and if Samsonov starts to slip, maybe we're going to stick Murray in there, or is the Murray train sailed away long ago?
No, Samsonov has to get severely hurt. I think Samsonov's already hurt. I think he's playing hurt, but he has to get really hurt for them to consider anyone, and that's including Wall. I don't think it's as clear as, Murray, NHL experience and Stanley Cup pedigree, he's going in, because as much as I would like to believe that his Stanley Cup pedigree and playoff pedigree would come in tight, I just don't have that faith in him right now.
It's not like driving a car and there's like Stanley Cup mode and you can just press the button and he becomes all of a sudden the Stanley Cup goaltender.
I don't know. Bobrovsky figured it out, so.
Well, and even you're talking about aging people, Giordano, is such a good player during the year, but at this time, he's got a lot of mileage on him this year, and at that
Yeah.
age, you got to be careful. We got to be careful. So,
Me and my dad were saying the same thing. Giordano looks a little slow yesterday.
So let's start basking. So now that we've assessed, the rubble that is the Lightning and the Bruins, and the Leafs are excited. I mean, again, you can't overemphasize the monkey off the back getting into round 2 was a huge accomplishment. That's already like you saw the look on Dubas's face. You saw Sheldon Keefe like, man, they don't want to talk about it anymore. I guess we're not going to be riding, Dubas's car over to Pittsburgh yet, or Philadelphia. So maybe staying put. You never know. But basking on what happened here, I gotta say, if there's one guy who's gonna score that winner, that Tavares goal was pretty freaking sweet. Maybe think of the Borchevsky goal back in the day. So I gotta ask you, that game-winning goal in Game 6 for Mr. Tavares, who slept in his Leafs pajamas, dreaming of being a Maple Leaf. Where does this rank in all-time Leafs goals and all-time NHL goals?
In all-time NHL goals, it's not up there. In all-time Leaf goals, man, it's hard. They've got such history, and I'm still pretty young. I don't, what's the sad part? I don't even remember a second round, like that's my time. I can reference maybe some highlights that we saw on Sports Center, but I think it's pretty awesome. I think it's up there just given the amount of time that it's been since anything's really happened for the Leafs in the second round. I think it's fitting that it is John Tavares in his Leafs pajamas. I think it's fitting that he just had a baby girl. Well, I guess he didn't have it, his wife did, but they had a baby girl a couple of days prior. So I think it all worked out nicely.
He's got to be really thrilled with it. I mean, look, I remember, the whole Canadians, Kings, Leafs back in the day. Zach, that's like 30 years ago, man. And as far as I know, you were not alive at that point. So
No, I'm still young.
But for a lot of us, that was like yesterday, but the time flew by real fast. So Tavares is really happy. Another guy's got to be really happy with his decision is Matthew Knies and Kyle Dubas for holding on to him at the deadline.
Yeah.
And, after game one, when he got inserted into the lineup, all they started doing was winning. You know, even
Yeah.
though he wasn't getting any points, he was still very effective on the ice in the plus minus category.
Mhm.
And the winning streak is there. I mean, you look at in the regular season and the playoffs. So I got to ask you, now that we get aside as far as what we saw, back in college and what we heard the rumors, we've had enough games to at least do some sort of assessment. Zachary Rain, let's hear your scouting report on Matthew Knies. And is it better, the same, or worse than what you expected?
Okay, I'll give you my Sports Center scouting report right here. Do do do.
Let's go, Mr. Kiprios.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Matthew Knies, obviously an accredited hockey player, especially in the college NCAA bracket. I think when I saw him play in the World Juniors, I can't admit that I was overly impressed. I saw potential like clearly everybody else did, but I wasn't overly impressed. Watching him transition to the Leafs lineup has been so uplifting. Um, I think that he's got serious potential. I think that he's a role player, and I think he knows his role. I think he knows that he's 6'2", whatever it is, 205 pounds, something like that. And his job is to get his tuchus in front of the net and
That's
try,
butt people.
yes, to get his butt in front of the net and try and cause some problems. I think that I still think he looks a little green. I think that it's no secret that he's making mistakes. He made a mistake on the Florida, I think, second goal yesterday. And then there he was back again, putting in the puck in the net for the Leafs. So I think he's a gamer. I think that his compete is awesome. I think that he fits well with Matthews because Matthews is a diva. He will not go in the corner if he doesn't have to. And Nyes doesn't care. He's like a dog. He's a dog chasing a bone right now. I think that he, comparatively speaking, is a better version of what Hyman was. Obviously a much more skilled version of what Hyman was because Hyman had hands of stone, but still big, strong player, can skate, can compete, will compete. And with the correct experience, I think that he's going to be a very good asset for the Leafs.
Okay, two questions. Number one, if you had a choice of who to put as his line mates, would be Matthews and who?
If I were to do a line, I do Nyes, Matthew, and Nylander.
Interesting. You don't like the pairing with him with O'Reilly, having the veteran kind of keeping an eye on him.
No, I don't think he needs it right now. I think at this point he's got to drive the train. If he starts making much more mistakes, colossal mistakes, then yes, we throw him back down to O'Reilly. We say, okay, we may have thrown you up too much, too quickly. But at this point in time, he made one mistake, he made up for it. So it's a wash, and you got to think, okay, give the kid another chance. I'm not against doing that and putting him with O'Reilly, but the kid drives the bus. I don't see O'Reilly driving the bus right now. And whoever is driving the bus has to go with somebody like Matthews, because Nyes will get up there, he'll drive the bus. Look at the play yesterday. Matthews gets the puck, delays, waits for Nyes to come in. Nyes makes a beautiful power move, cuts in front of the net, spins and puts it through his legs, right? Who else is going to get him that puck? Not O'Reilly. O'Reilly's not doing that right. O'Reilly is not doing that right now. So, put him with Matthews. See what kind of magic they can spark.
Which current or former player would you say that Matthew Knies most reminds you of? Is there anybody that in their style?
I want to say just because of the way he's playing Hyman, but it's not a good example because he is way more skilled than Hyman ever did. Mm-hmm. If I had to think about it,
it's tough because you're comparing sometimes apples and oranges. But just if you, again, in the scouting report, if you think in the data bank and like all the players I've watched before, if I had to say he's most similar to X, who would it be?
I feel like you're going to want to go older school than I am, but
always because I am old. Yes,
yeah, not old, but older than I am. I want to say that he reminds me closer of like a Kapanen.
Not Kasperi.
Yeah, Kasperi Kapanen.
It is Kasperi.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like that's not a good example.
No, I think Leaf fans are getting very ill thinking about that. But regardless, let's give Mr. Knies his due, and glad he's aboard the train. And there's no question.
Who do you think? You give me an example. I don't know. I'll roll with you.
It's too early for me, honestly, just for the fact that I haven't seen enough. And I feel like, I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong or not, but I feel like he's holding back. I feel like he's
Of
not
course.
he's not taking those crazy chances. So he's more being defensively responsible and more like kind of pulling up the wagon. I think they're putting him in a role, but I don't see this as his future role. Like I see once they take off the handcuffs and they're like, okay, buddy, it's regular season, let's go to it. It's a guy based on what I saw that goal and seeing how he kind of digs around. I can definitely see 30 goals in his future. Like I'll put it that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that they're shocked that he's still, he's still playing more reserved. I agree.
Yeah. Maybe a younger Leon Draisaitl at some point. Let's move on to just kidding. Stanley Cup fever hit St. Louis once upon a time. You know, the good old days when Jordan Binnington was the man. And the puck looked like a beach ball to him. But ultimately, a lot of people looked past Binnington and said that there was one particular person who really was the glue that held the team together, and what was Mr. Ryan O'Reilly. So for all our talk of Mr. Kane, and I'm not talking about Evander coming to Toronto, the Rangers at the end got him, and I don't think he did very much for them at all, Mr. Patrick Kane, because I don't even know he was healthy, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But I gotta say, after watching that first round, I totally think Dubas was a genius to pick this guy up, and he was the perfect acquisition. Am I crazy or am I right?
No, I think you're right. I think that more than anything, and the true value in him is that he's a room guy. I think that him, Shen, they go in the room, they have more confidence, they have more composure. Maybe they're not in panic mode because, hey, I've been here before. I know what this is. Just relax. We'll get through this. This is what we got to do. I can't tell you that I'm overly impressed with his game in the last game and in game 6 against Tampa. I was definitely more impressed right when the Leafs got him later in the season than in the first couple games. I think that he's defensively a wizard. I don't know if he's being utilized correctly, and that's something I think you'd have to know him more intimately to make a judgment call. But yeah, I just don't know if the Leafs are putting him in the right position right now.
So if you had to point to one player from the first round for the Leafs and say, this, if I have to say one person really was the most responsible for this, would it be Samsonov?
Yeah, it has to be Samsonov because at the end of the day, the Tampa was out shooting the Leafs every single night. And if you look at high scoring, high danger chances, Tampa had the Leafs 100%. It's like John Cooper said, the result wasn't there, but the Tampa beat the Leafs. Like let's not be confused here, right? Technically, yes, Leafs went on second round. Leafs scored more goals. Leafs got more wins, whatever it was. Leafs move on. But on a matchup basis, I don't think Tampa could be upset with the way that they played, and I don't think they probably would have changed it. So Samsonov has to be number one. But it's like the old expression, you win with the goalie and you lose with the goalie, right? So the goalie is the one always responsible. If I had to say who I'm most impressed with, and I'm surprisingly most impressed with, Morgan Rielly has been amazing. And for as long as I've been on this podcast, that I always say that he's been a glorified left winger. Man, oh man, what a change. Luke Shen, I don't know what the hell he's whispering in Morgan Rielly's ear, but good for him. Maybe it's that Luke Shen is defensive and he's good just saying, hey, Mo, go for a skate, do what you got to do. But damn, has he been good.
Didn't Shen play for the Lightning?
Yes.
So doesn't he know what they're about? And maybe he could have shared that wisdom a little with his new friends?
I think some trade secrets definitely would have been an advantage for them. I don't think that was oversought.
So Morgan Rielly, listening to our podcast religiously, which I know he does, and heard you speaking so many times, what do you think was the light bulb that went over his head that he said, Zach's right, I really got to do this differently? So what is different in his game in the playoffs than the rest of his career, Zach? How did he do it?
It's like I said, I think maybe he's just got a good partner now. I think he's got somebody who he's able to take a little more risks. I think he's shooting the puck a lot more, which is great. And yeah, I want to go with that. I don't think the Leafs have ever had really a deep partner with him that can play the same role that Luke Shen's been playing, right? The defensive, calming presence, the guy who, don't worry, Mo, if you go for a skate and I get a one-on-one, I'll just end up, putting the guy in the first row type of player. So I think that is maybe just a calming presence for him. I also think that he's not being matched up against opposition's top talent either. So I think that maybe he's getting a little bit of a lighter load, which is probably very nice for him.
If you had to pick any other Leafs that were really, really impressed you in the first round, who else would be on your list?
That really, really impressed me. Achari, I think he's playing his role really well. Very fast, physical, defensively responsible. Very happy with him as well. Jake McCabe, 8 pucks. I think the guy ate more pucks than maybe anybody in that first round. So very happy with him as well. Who else? No, I wouldn't even consider Marner to be up there. I don't think Marner or Matthews were that special in the first round. TJ Brody, I thought was horrible for a couple of the games. So I wouldn't put him up there either.
So let's fast forward to our disappointments. So somebody you may have had really good expectations for or mild expectations. When you assess that first round, who most disappointed you? Is Michael Bunting at the top of that list?
No. Bunting plays his game. Bunting has to play his game a certain way. That's how he is. It's no different than Matthew Tkachuk. He's got a different reputation, just like everyone else. He plays on that edge, and there's a player like that on every team. Okay, you go across any team in the NHL, and every team has one player like that. So I'm not upset with Bunting. I would probably say that I'm most upset with David Kampf. I think that he's done absolutely nothing. And a guy who's been playing third line matchups for the last 3 years, being on a fourth line, there should be some type of advantage. And he's been horrible. He's not even winning faceoffs like he used to. So I don't know what's up David Kamp's, what's going on with him, but I'm not happy with. Who else? Justin Holl, obviously. Justin Holl is a glorified pylon, but what do you get? 15 goals against, 14 goals against on the ice. Everybody knew it was happening. It doesn't take a genius to figure out, oh yeah, they keep picking on Holl's corner. They keep going in Holl's corner, keep driving Holl wide. So that one was obvious, but otherwise, man, I think Aston Reese is a role player again, doing his role. Marner and Matthews have been disappointing, though not drastically disappointing. Who else? Nylander, very good in the first series. Last game, he was awful. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm not. You know what? I did not have a lot of guys that actually impressed me, to be honest.
Yeah,
Just simply because the amount of goals given up, and I thought Samsonov was the guy. I thought he really gave himself a chance to succeed. He didn't give up those second or third chances, which he was notorious for during the regular season. He held on to the puck longer. He didn't dump it in a stupid way. Like, he was smart about it. He played within his zone there. So I think Samsonov saved their bacon at the end of the day. I was waiting for Matthews and Marner just to go bananas. Like, I was waiting for it, and we saw little glimpses of it. But it was like you said, it's like they knew when to go after Vasilevskiy. Like, they were so smart about it. It's almost like they had some sort of report there. And that's where I'm really afraid right now going in Bobrovsky, because Bobrovsky is now Vezina Bobrovsky again. This could be interesting because Florida is on a high after beating Boston, and they're not going to relent. So I think this is going to be a very tough series. But as we end today's episode, Zach, and we're going to go into our discussion, I think we have to look at this now. For as long as I've been around on this earth, I got to say, after that opening round, like, the way this team is set up, the pieces are there, relatively healthy. This is the chance. You got to make this happen this year. You got to get that cup. You got to find whatever way it's going to be done. There's no relenting right now. There's no, oh, I'm so glad I made it out of the first round, and that's the victory in itself. I think they got to pull in really deep, whatever they got to do. But I got to say, now that Boston's gone, I a lot of people are predicting, an all-Canadian Stanley Cup here with Edmonton. That makes me very nervous as well, But with considering the high-scoring games we had with Lightning, we could be seeing like 12 to 10 games with Edmonton.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting. I predicted, just my bracket has the Leafs Edmonton final. I made another one because I don't think the NHL would let two Canadian teams be in the Stanley Cup final. But it's very exciting. I think you're right. I think this is the Leafs' chance. I think they need to figure it out. I also think the Leafs. How familiar are you with horse racing?
Not too much, to be honest.
Okay, so then I'll make it quick. Secretariat was a horse, one of the best race horses of all time. Notoriously famous for being very lackadaisical in the gate. So you know that area where they start right there in the beginning. It's a gate. You know, they open and then the bell rings and everybody goes right. You know, Secretariat was very famous because he'd kind of just be sitting there like he's on vacation a little bit. Then the bell would ring. He'd be starting off from last place, and everyone would be like, "What the hell is he doing?" And next thing you know, boom, he's off right, and he would win. And he was one of the most winning race horses of all time. He had the largest spread in a racehorse. The point is that I see the Leafs very much like Secretariat. Out of the gate, game one, no big deal. We'll get game two, right? 2 periods into game two, losing 3-1. It's no problem. There's a third period. 10 minutes left in the third period. Should we start now? 6 minutes left in the third period. Okay, now I think would be a good time to get a goal. Next thing you know, boom, 2 goals in the net, third goal in overtime. So I see the Leafs very much that way. I think they need to get out of that mentality and realize that you can only do that for so long. But if they do, I think the Leafs will be a force to be reckoned with.
If they played with half the intensity that they do in a third period when the goalie's pulled, wow, because they're
Yeah,
a house
seriously.
on fire. Unbelievable.
Right?
So, assuming now because they made it out of the first round, regardless of what's going to happen, do you predict that Keefe and Dubas will be back?
I predict Dubas will be back. I think the Dubas gave Keefe the team that he needs to win the Stanley Cup. I don't think that there's a doubt about that. And anybody who says otherwise, so no team is going to be perfect. In hindsight is always 2020, but they just dethroned, and I say dethroned Tampa because come on, 4 out of what this last 5-6 years they've been a Stanley Cup final, and as different as the team is, it's still the same team. So the fact that they were able to get past Tampa in 6, Dubas gave the Leafs what they needed to. I think that it's Keefe's job now to figure it out. As Dubas has done what the Leafs needed to, and I've been watching Keefe coach more and more, I get a little more scared. But I don't see why Dubas should lose his job. He did what he needed to. I think if he should have lost his job at any point, it would have been 5 years ago when he signed Tavares to 11.1 million or whatever it was. At this point, he did a good job, and he kept a lot of solid pieces in all of his acquisitions at the trade deadline. So I'm happy with him. If it was me, sign him. I don't have a problem with it. Don't give him 10 years. Give him maybe 2-3 years, whatever it is. Let him figure it out again, because what happens after this is going to be a whole different problem. And that's assuming again that he's the one that made the trades. He's the one that's been making the decisions, because we don't know what's going on in the back office. Keefe, I wouldn't be so quick. I think that Spets is breathing down Keith's throat. So
It'll be very interesting to see. But my gut feeling is if they can get past Florida, I think they're making it to the Stanley Cup final. I think that they
I
got the
agree.
veterans, they got the confidence, they got the monkey off their back, and you just get past this one round. I think there's not gonna be any stopping them till the Stanley Cup final. And I think it's gonna be a really exciting time to be a Toronto Maple Leaf fan. So
I agree.
Zach, compared to Wayne Frazier of Doug Laurie Sports, one of our other co-hosts, who said the Leafs ain't making it out of the first round. You guys, you won that bet, so congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And as a Leaf fan, and for all those Leaf fans, the suffering Leaf fans, I gotta say, congratulations. Your suffering is starting to end a little bit, and don't give up hope because they've shown they can do it. And that game 6, man, you're just always worried, is Tampa gonna bring it on? And the Leafs showed they can buckle down and do it. So I'm really excited about what the future holds. And it correct me if I'm wrong, but it did not feel like that game that second series started really quickly. Like there was very little lag time in between. And I don't know. I feel like for some reason, Florida, even though they played after the Leafs, I felt they just looked more rested. The Leafs looked exhausted. Like they were really, like they really put it into that Lightning series. And I don't know, Florida just came out fresher in game 1.
Yeah, it's like I said, momentum. Florida dethroned the beast. The Leafs beat Tampa, which is great, but Boston's been a juggernaut all year. So momentum. If the Leafs have to put a stop to Florida early on, and the fact that they had 2 power plays right at the beginning of the game and didn't put a puck in the net, I came back to hurt them.
Well, we'll see what happens. It's exciting times, certainly. When we'll have you back on, Zach, we'll know if they've made it to the third, fourth rounds or what happened. Thank you very much for your insight, as always, sharing your hockey wisdom and knowledge. Now, people need to reach you, Zachary Rain of Rain Finance. Best way to correspond with you?
Email me, go on my website, just book a meeting. The button's right there once you get on my website, rainfinance.ca.
And we'll give you all the handles. And Zach's your guy if you need assistance with insurance, financial investing, or filling out your bracket for hockey pools. Although, do not take that as legal advice.
Yeah, exactly. You're funny. Thank you very much for having me on again. It is always a pleasure, and I enjoy these so much.
And please leave your comments at the bottom, hit the subscribe button. And this time, if you are a Leaf fan, let Zach know, hey, Zach, you know what? We were doubting you and you did a good job. So feel free to give him a thumbs up because positive reinforcement is always appreciated as well, in addition to the negativity.
Yes, always.
So as we sum up today, we bring out the pipes and we
Sir,
say,
keep on living the chosen life.
cheers.
Cheers.